Welcome to another edition of the Chieftain Prep Rally with Jeff Squared. I'm Jeff Latofsky. This is Jeff Bursch. We're both of the Chieftain sports staff. And we're going to talk playoff football this week. I mean, this is the time of the year when it gets fun, Jeff. We become fans, just like the fans of the schools, and everybody in Pueblo cheers for the Pueblo team.
Yeah,
at least they should be.
Absolutely,
right,
it's a fun time of the year.
Yeah, and so we have three teams still alive in the playoffs. We have Pueblo West, Pueblo South, and Pueblo East. And East, of course, is in the 3A. They're the three-time defending champion, and they're trying to work their way back. They started the season 0-5. Now they're 5-5, won the league, got into the playoffs, and now we'll see if they can make a playoff run.
Yeah, they're the first team to start. They play Friday. They're up at Erie. East snuck into the playoffs, I guess you could say. They were 17th in the RPI, but because they won their conference, they got the automatic bid to the postseason, and the committee obviously thought highly of them. They bumped them up to the 12 seed. I guess they had to put them above Durango and Harrison since they beat them in the league. But yeah, three teams from the South Central League in the playoffs. And this, interestingly, is a rematch of last year's first round game as well. East beat Erie 27-15 and won the next three games to win that state championship. So it started last year against Erie, and I know they're excited to go up there and have a chance to face the Tigers again.
This one's on the road, though,
yes,
which makes a little bit of a difference. And really, a team that's hot that goes into the playoffs, those are the kind of teams that are scary. And this East team has confidence, and when you have confidence, that sure makes a big difference going to the playoffs, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is a completely different East team than I saw the first 5 weeks of the season. That I've asked them continually the last 5 weeks how the confidence is growing, and you can see it. You can see it in the way they play. You can see it in the way they act, and they certainly look like they're ready to go out and defend their state championship. I don't know if they have it in them. I haven't seen enough of 3A to completely know this season, but I think when they were 0-5, they were down at 36 in the RPI and worked their way back up to 17.
Is there a team or two to really look out for in the 3A ranks? Because with East, they're going to have to battle their way through this bracket. But they're really on a good side of the bracket too, Jeff.
They are. If they can get through this first game, they'll get a rematch or potential rematch with Canyon City, a team they lost to earlier this year. But getting past Erie is going to be tough. They're one of the best teams in the state. They're in the Tri-Valley League that includes Roosevelt and Meade, and Meade was number 1 seed, Roosevelt's the 3 seed, Erie's the 5 seed. So obviously Erie's played a lot of good competition. So and they're familiar with East the same way right. East is with Erie, so it's definitely going to be an interesting battle.
Talk about some of the players on East to really look for and that have to really step up this game.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is they're just going to have to keep doing what they've done on offense. Lately, that's been running the ball with Sebastian Benavides. He's really come on the last 5 games. I know he was hurt early in the season, but has really given them a rushing attack that's also helped to open up their passing game. And Luke Andrade has really come on the last few weeks. I think in the last 3 weeks he's thrown 8 touchdowns and just 1 pick, and that was a Hail Mary at the end of a half. So that's not even a big deal. But he's developed a real good connection with Kane Medrano too, and then those two have been something. Last week they had 61 and 83-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
Passes to each other.
Dangerous connection.
Yeah, definitely. And there's always Marcus Winston as well. And, a 6'6" target. He's caught 30 passes this year. So, he's obviously in the mix too. And, we talked about East finding a rhythm as a team. And it's especially been on offense where, they've scored at least 40 points the last 3 games.
Right.
So, yeah, talking playoff, I'll switch to your side. I know you're going to cover the Pueblo West game this weekend, and they're at home on Saturday, and they're opening with Stanley Lake.
Yeah, Stanley Lake. This is a team that really hasn't had very much success in the playoffs. They've only been in the playoffs 3 times, and the coach that's there now he's been in his 13th season, and they've never got past the first round. So it's not a team that has a lot of tradition or value or somebody to really be scared of. But they're sort of a mini version of Pueblo West in looking up all the stats and looking at what they do. They have a quarterback who's sort of multi-talented, like Jacob Wilkinson is for Pueblo West. He runs the football, he throws the football, he's their leader. He's only 5'7", unlike almost gives up a foot to Jacob Wilkinson, who's 6'5" for Pueblo West. But they're a mini version of that team. They run the option. They like to run the football. They'll throw it if they have to. Neither team, they average 50, 60 yards per game through the air. So it's not a team that you're not going to see a lot of balls in the air in that game. I mean, you never know what the weather's going to be like too. Of course, we got hit with a little bit of snow today. It might carry over into the weekend. It looks like the forecast looks a little better. So I suspect this game's going to be a running game. And really, when you look at Pueblo West, you lead with Jacob Wilkinson, the quarterback, when they run that triple option. You have Pierre Taylor, who's been a beast for them. Got nicked up a little bit in their last game. Right. And he came out of the game, never returned, and we haven't got a whole lot of report. You don't get many reports about injuries in high school. It's sort of like the NFL. They're going to try to keep it hush hush. But Niami Smyer-Williams is really their go-to guy when they do get the ball in the air, and he'll run a reverse or two here and there.
Special teams as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's the kind of player that can break a game open. So those two guys you really got to look for, and I suspect this is going to be a running game, and who's going to be the most powerful team, and I look for Pueblo West to really play some smash mouth and see what they can do with their special team.
Yeah, West was the top seed from out of Pueblo, fourth in 4A, and if they can win this game, they're looking at a second home game too.
Right, and they've only lost one game. They lost to Pine Creek, and it was a close game in their league, basically the league championship. It was 21-14. Pueblo West is unlike the team they're playing. They've had a lot of success in the playoffs. Yep. Monty is in his 12th year. I think it's closer to 13, but we went according to the Chassa book. But they've been in the playoffs 7 times. Haven't got past the first round for a few years. They won it in 2007. In 2012, they did get to the semifinals. So a little bit of past success for this Pueblo West team. They've been in the playoffs before, but they've had difficulty getting out of the first round. And part of it's because they've had to travel.
Yep.
So we know what it's like to travel in the first round. And good luck to Pueblo West, and we'll be out there covering them, just like you'll be out there at Pueblo South for their games, and talk a little about South's opponent in their first round game.
Yeah, South's at home on Saturday, also same time, unfortunately, as Pueblo West, but they're going to play at Dutch Clark, and they'll be facing Montrose. That's a very familiar team to South. The teams met in 2013 state semifinals, and it's a game that they lost by a point in double overtime, and I know it still kind of haunts Coach Ryan Goddard over at South.
By the way, it was here at Dutch Clark.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I obviously wasn't here for that, but I've heard all about it this week, and I know South as a program is looking forward to having another chance. These kids that are playing now weren't around for that, obviously, but South really established itself, I thought, last week as perhaps a favorite in 4A to maybe make a run at the state title. Coming into that, you didn't know what to make of it. They hadn't really been challenged a whole lot this year. The one game they lost at Pueblo West, in double overtime, another 1-point loss. But they put it to Ponderosa last week, and that's a Ponderosa team that came in ranked number 1 in the state. And, there were a lot of coaches I talked to this year who thought Ponderosa was maybe the best team in 4A. So, South really, like I said, they established themselves as maybe a favorite. What are your thoughts kind of on that?
Well, I was going to ask you, too, what do you think that South needs to do to win this game? And Montrose, again, once pretty similar teams. Teams that like to run the football, will throw the football on occasion. I mean, South obviously has so many weapons to be able to throw the football. And really, in my mind, South, the only way they're going to lose in the playoffs, I think, is going to beat themselves. If they have a bad penalty here, a turnover here, can't stop people, give up a big run, give up a big, special teams play. This team is very capable of going to the state finals, and really we've mentioned that I've always thought that they could get to the Final Four, and after watching last week, I think they can get to the Final Two, if not win this whole thing. So they're going to have to prevent the mistakes and the things and one thing you look at what they've done this season. They've stayed away from injury.
Yeah.
To really all their key players, and at least on the offensive side. They've had some guys nicked up defensively, But this is a team that can go a long ways, Jeff.
Yeah, they didn't punt last week against Ponderosa, which
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, it is. Putting up 53 points and 8 touchdowns, and they did it through the air. And Steve Brock on the ground, he had 187 yards, but I think only 16 at halftime. And Zach Cozzolino threw for 451, or over 450 yards and 6 touchdowns. And Marcel Barbie and Thomas Panunzio, and the list of their weapons just goes on, and it's been pretty amazing what they've been able to do on offense this week. But I think most impressive last week was their defense. Ponderosa came in, the top offensive team in the state, and they shut them down. They gave up 24 points, but really a couple late touchdowns.
Cosmetic.
Really didn't matter. But I think that's the key. Is you mentioned the turnovers. Obviously, teams haven't been able to stop South, so if they can hold on to the ball, that'll probably be the case again. But it comes back to their defense too, and getting stops and getting the ball back to that offense so they can go out there and do what they do.
Right. I guess we wanted to mention also there's some area teams that are in action, including Lahana is still trying to defend their 2A title. And now it gets tough because now some of these teams have to go on the road, and you have to Lahana does get TCA at home, and TCA was in their league, and that was a really tough game they played in their league. So there's a little bit of revenge factor for TCA coming to Lahana this weekend. But we have a lot of small schools that are going on, and we also want to mention good luck to Pueblo West volleyball. They're at the state tournament. They got a tough draw. They got Valor Christian and Shine Mountain in their pool, so they have to get through pool play just to get into the semifinals. That's going to be a difficult task, but we'll see what Pueblo West is made of. They did lose one of their best players at the end of the season, and they've had an opportunity to play a few games without her, and I think they've developed some chemistry there. This team has a lot of experience and a lot of confidence, I think.
A little bit of unknown too with Malaya in the lineup too. I think teams don't quite know what to expect out of Pueblo West. So yeah, it'll be interesting. They did get a tough draw, but like we've talked about, kind of all season, once you get there, you never know.
Right. Once again, this is Jeff Squared. It's Chieftain Prep Rally. Thanks for joining us for another week. We'll talk to you next week again.